Welcome everyone to our YouTube series, Test Prep Made Easy. So in this particular series, we are going to post regularly questions on our YouTube channel. The questions may pertain to CAT preparation, maybe pertaining to GMAT preparation, as well as of various topics which are tested in these particular exams. For example, quants, LRDI, English, and various areas which are tested. And each day we will handle certain number of questions and their video solutions. The best approach is to these questions in these videos. So have a happy preparation ahead and enjoy the video. Thank you.
All right, so these are the questions that we are going to try in today's video. If you have tried it already from the thumbnail, good enough. If you haven't, you can pause the video at this point and try it once before you look into the solutions. We recommend you doing that. But if you just want to enjoy the solution, that's also good enough. And go ahead and watch the solutions now. Right, we have a very simple problem on percentages. It's a verbose one. A lot of things are written. So just let's fish for the important information out here. So there's a father who wants to distribute a certain sum of money between his daughter and son in such a way that both of them invest their shares in the scheme that offers compound interest at 20% per annum for T and T plus 2 years. So effectively, difference of 2 years in terms of period of investment. Respectively. Okay, so respectively meaning the daughter investing for T years and the son investing for T plus 2 years. Then the two shares grow to become equal. Okay, great. So effectively, the daughter's share after, or not, let me not say share. The share is something else. The daughter's amount in the scheme after T years and the son's amount after T plus 2 years. These two things should become equal, right? That's what they say. The two shares grow to become equal. Now, if the son's share was rupees 4,000, then find the total money distributed by the father. Okay, so we're looking at the total money distributed. So you have to take into account both of these. Now, there are a lot of different ways to handle this problem. I'll just show the very basic one first. I mean, there is a very easy way to figure it out if you catch one idea here. But if you don't, it's fine. I'll just show the basic one first, then I'll just discuss about the shortcut or something you can call it, through that itself. So it should be much more clear there. So the son share is 4,000 and the son is investing for T plus 2 years. The rate of interest is 20%. So the amount with the son, so let me write it in this way. The amount with the son should be 4,000 into 1.2 raised to T plus 2, right? So this is the compound interest idea, right? The compounded amount grows by 1.2 times every year and after T plus 2 years. So this will be the amount with him. Similarly, the amount with the daughter. Now, this is the part we don't know. So let's say, so I'm just written this in short. Please understand that this is daughter in short. So let's say some X amount of share. So this is the original share, by the way, the daughter had, and that grew by 1.2 times for T years, right? So this is the final amount with the daughter. Now these two have to be equal. So effectively what you get is something like this: 4,000 into 1.2 to the power T plus 2 should be equal to X into 1.2 to the power T. Now, here itself, you will understand what was the initial thing I was talking about. The idea is that the son's share after 2 years must be equal to the daughter's share at the beginning. So that, I mean, because if you imagine it in a timeline sort of thing, so for the first 2 years, whatever the son's amount grew to, the daughter's amount should be the same at the beginning itself. So this should be the share of the daughter at the beginning itself, so that after this both have T years of money growing in their account, and that lands to the same value. So effectively, this is what this equation thing will also resolve to. If you understand this, you just don't have to write this. You can directly do this. So 4,000 into 1.2 square will be x. I mean, the 1.2 to the power t cancels off, and you're left with 1.2 whole squared. This is 1.44, by the way, just multiply that. So you get the x as, or the daughter's share as 5760. That is, by the way, 144 into 4. That is what I'm doing mentally. If you are a little good with squares, you will observe that 144, you don't have to do 144 actually. You can leave this as 12 square. Forget the 0.2. So, okay, let me just show this part. Those who are, those who like calculation techniques and all. So I'm just visualizing this as something like this, first of all. So this goes off. And now what I'm doing is I'm just observing this 4 to be 2 square. So if this is 2 square and this is 12 square, the product should be 24 square, which I know is 576, and then followed with a 0. So this is small calculation thing that I did out here. By the way, this is not the value we are looking for. This is the daughter's share. We are looking for what is the total money distributed by the father. So the total money distributed by the father is 4,000 to the son and the 5760 to the daughter. So that's a total of 9760. That's option D. On the face of it, this is a very simple problem. I mean, even if you do it with the basics, I don't think this will take too much time to do, right? I mean, this was just an explanation part. You can just start by writing this itself if you are, your basics of compound interest and all are at the right place. So pretty simple problem, but an interesting one nevertheless. If you understand that the first 2 years growth of son's amount should be equal to the daughter's initial share, then all you have to do is 4,000 into 1.2 square straight away, and you get the daughter's share. Add that to 4,000, you get the answer. But anyhow, that's the answer for this problem. Hopefully nobody made a mistake and mark 5760 as the answer. Yes, we're not looking for the daughter's share, we're looking for the total money distributed by the father. There is an option for that. Mostly you will have that as a trick option. But yeah, that's all for this problem. Thank you for joining in. We have a circular track problem on time and distance. So let me just read the problem once. So these two people, A and B, are running in opposite direction on a circular track. So they are running on opposite directions on a circular track, starting at diametrically opposite points. So the starting point is not the same. So for example, so let's say this is roughly the circular track. If A starts from somewhere here, B is going to start from the diametrically opposite point. So again, a rough thing, but yeah, this is the idea, right? And also they're moving in opposite direction. So let me just mark that somehow. So let's say A is moving in this direction, that is clockwise, and B is moving in this direction, that is anti-clockwise. That doesn't matter, so I've just taken anything. Anyhow, each girl runs at a constant speed. Great. So they have a uniform speed for themselves. They first meet after Brinda has run 250 meters. So this is interesting. See, what you have to understand is the first time that they meet. So let's say Brinda has covered distance till this point, and by this time A should have covered this much, right? Only then they can meet, right? So it says the question is telling us that meet after Brinda has run 250 meters. So this is what effectively they have done, right? So I don't want to overload this particular problem with variables and all. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write in this manner. So when A and B together, this is covers half the round or the entire track. So let me write half the track itself. So half the length of the track. I hope this is understood why I'm saying half the length of the track, because just from this diagram, this picture should be evident that A and B together has covered the semicircle, right, which is half of the length of the track. By that time, B has covered 250 meters, right? So this is one thing that is known to us from the first information. The first meet after Brinda has run 250 meters. Great. So let me carry on from there, and let me just take this off before I do that. Yeah. They meet for the third time. So now we are talking about the third meeting or something. after Anusha or A has run 600 meter past their first meeting point. So I took somewhere here as a first meeting point. So let me just keep that. This for your reference so that you understand this better. Now, please understand when will they meet for the third time? So after they have covered this much and this much, that was their first meeting, right? So let me just write this as M1 or something, indicating the first meeting point. And this was the information that we gathered from the first meeting point, right? Now, beyond this, let's say B has covered a certain more distance, and then A covers this entire uh, remaining thing, and they meet here for the second time. So this will be the second meeting, right? So by the way, this is after the first meeting, right? Because this information, A has run 600 meters past their first meeting point. So we have to think after the first meeting, whatever has happened. So after the first meeting, Brinda has covered this much and Anusha has covered this much. So I hope I should put some arrows so that you don't get confused. So initially Brinda covers in this direction and Anusha in this direction. And then Brinda is continuing in anti-clockwise. So just remember that anti-clockwise one is Brinda and the clockwise one is Anusha, right? So now I hope this should not be a confusion. So this is the second meeting, right? And now we are concerned about the third meeting. So let's do that. But before I go into that, just notice what happened after the first meeting. So from the first meeting to the second meeting, A and B together has covered one entire circle, right? Together. Whatever B has covered and whatever A has covered, if you add that up, it will be the entire circular track, isn't it? So same thing should happen after the second meeting as well. So after the second meeting, let's say Brinda has covered this distance and Anusha has covered this distance, and they meet somewhere here at the third meeting. So again, if you check, this is an entire circle, right? So if you think after first meeting till the third meeting, A and B together has covered twice the entire track, right? So it's like covering two tracks or something. And by that time, A has covered 600 meters, isn't it? That is given to us in the second part. So this is what the information has been presented to us, right? And what are we looking for? What is the length of the track? So it is very easy now. So a lot of different ways we can do that. I'm focusing on this part. See, nobody's changing their speed, right? So if nobody's changing their speed, we can definitely use proportionality. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this to A and B covering one whole track or something like this. By that much time, how much will B cover? It's a simple proportionality thing. If A and B covers half of the track, B is covering 250 meters. So if A and B would have covered the entire track, that is double of half of the track. So B should have covered 500 meters by then. So this is from the first information. From the second information, again, we can do this same thing. So A and B is covering two tracks. A is covering 600 meters. So by the time A and B covers one track, A covers 300 meters. So this is what we know, right? From both the information. Now, as I was saying, we can actually do it with any one of them. So it really doesn't matter. But this is the standard way of solving these kind of questions. So if you want to solve this without writing anything, this will be the best approach to go ahead and solve it. Because what you should understand is when they are covering one whole track in opposite direction, they are basically covering the entire track together, isn't it? So that is what this one track and one track is indicating. So B is covering 500 meters and A is covering 300 meters. So effectively what we can say is together they're covering 800 meters, isn't it? And that should be the length of the track. There are other ways to figure this out as well. Let me show you another angle out here. Just let me get this back to the initial picture. That is the first meeting. 1 second. Yeah, till here. So we already knew this thing, right? By the time A and B has covered half of the track, B is covering 250 meters. Just use the proportionality in any one of them. So let's use it on this one. So if A and B covers two tracks, A covers 600 meters. So by the time A and B covers half track, A will cover 1/4 of 600 meter, isn't it? So two track is, two track to half track is 1/4. So just use the same proportionality here as well. So make it 1/4 or something. So that would be 150 meters, right? So we already have this picture when both have covered half of the track, right? So this distance should be 150 meter and this distance should be 250 meters, giving us this half of the track as a total of 400 meters. If half of the track is 400 meters, then the other half should also be 400 meters, indicating the entire track is of 800 meter length. So a lot of different ways to solve this problem, but the basic idea is proportionality. And understanding one very important idea is what happens when they travel in opposite direction. So together they are covering the length of the track for every consecutive meetings. So from the first meeting to the second meeting, together they have covered the entire track length. Second to third, they're again covering the entire track length. This will happen in opposite direction. In the same direction, it's just the difference of the round that is matter. That matters. We call it lap lead or something. That is the terminology I use in our classes. But yeah, this is the idea for this particular question. Pretty straightforward question. I hope most of you have got this question correctly. If you have not, hopefully now the basics are clear and you can apply this idea in a lot of different problems. So that's it for this problem. Hopefully everything was understood. Thank you. Well, we have a very simple problem on ratios. I'll show you the very easy way to solve this question. Let's have a read into it first. So Richard's chemistry teacher asked the class to make a salt water solution with 5:7 ratio of salt to water. Now Richa misheard her teacher and made a 100 ml solution with a 1:3 ratio of water to salt. So first thing to take a note of, always have this thing properly checked. So sometimes this is what happens in questions. So initially one ratio has been mentioned as salt to water. Then in the next information, they have just rephrased it or reversed the order. So now they have put it as water to salt. So don't make a mistake there. So first thing, let me take a note of. So I'll just take it as salt to water because that is what the information in the initial information was given as. So this was the required thing. So the required thing was 5:7, but the error thing that this girl did, Richa, was 1:3 for salt, water to salt. So salt to water should be 3:1, right? So this is what Richa did. She mixed it in the reverse ratio, wrong ratio of 3:1. Okay, so which of the following will give the correct solution? So we need to get back to this particular ratio. So as I was saying, so I'll discuss the very basic one or very easiest one to solve this particular question. So we know that the total volume of this is 100 ml, right? Now, if you have 100 ml of this, so the salt should be 75 ml and water should be 25 ml, right? A lot of different ways to do this, whichever is preferable to you. Now, notice something. I mean, a couple of things you should take a note of. See, this is a very easy one, actually. Sometimes it's not that easy. But in this case, it should be observable that in the error thing, even if you don't get it to this volume, the 3 is greater than 1, but what is required is 7 greater than 5. What I mean to say is, in the required thing, the water has to be more than salt, right? But what Richa did is she put more salt than water. So obviously we have to add water to it. So now the question is how much water? So what you do is just keep the salt intact. By the way, how I understood that I should add only water or only salt to it is through the options. So that is, if you just glance through the options here, each of the options are adding just one type of thing, right? Either you add water or you add salt to it. Hence, I understood that only one type of thing has to be added, not a mixture again. Okay, great. So let's come back to this. So keep the salt intact. So keep the salt as 75 ml because we're supposed to add water. So the volume of salt is not going to change. So keep this as 75 ml. And then just think about how much water is required to get this ratio. That is all you have to do. So 5 into 15 is 75. So think about 7 into 15. So 7 into 15 is 105. So that is the amount of water that you need to have with 75 ml of salt to get this required ratio. And now just think about how much extra water you need to add from 25 ml to 100 ml. Sorry, 105 ml. So that would be 80 ml of water, option B. So pretty straightforward question, nothing too much fancy about this. There are a lot of variations on these type of problems that happen. So if something remains constant, so in this particular context, the salt doesn't change, right? In the two types of ratio, in the error one and the required one. If something is remaining constant, just make it constant and then think about the change that you need to do for the other part. So that will automatically reduce the effort that you have to put into the question. Now it's a very straightforward question, no variables at all required. It's a straightforward 10-second, 15-second hardly that should be required to solve this problem. So that's all I had to add for this problem. Hopefully everything was understood. Thank you. All right, we have a problem which can be solved in a way we solve time and work problems. So that is the approach I'm going to take. Let's read it once. So there are two candles of equal length, do not miss this out, which are lit at noon. One candle takes 10 hours to completely burn, while the other takes 5 hours instead of 10 hours to completely burn. By the way, they are of equal length. So obviously there should be a difference in width or something, right? So don't ponder on that. There could be a difference in material also. So one candle is burning out completely in 10 hours. The other one is burning out completely in 5 hours. But they are of equal length. Do not forget that. At what time will the slower burning candle be exactly twice as long as the faster one? So there are two candles out here. The slower burning candle is the first candle. So I'm just indicating the slower one as S and the faster one as F. So we know that the slower one burns out in 10 hours and the faster one burns out in 5 hours, right? And since the length of the candle is not given, so I'm going to assume the length of the candle as something. So I'm just going to assume the length of each candle because both are of equal length. So I can assume each candle to be of the same length. So I'm just going to assume that to be 10 something centimeter or something. So maybe that's not a realistic figure, but yeah, I'll just assume it to be 10 centimeter. So if 10 centimeter is burned out in 10 hours. Now, this has not been mentioned in the question, but without assuming this doesn't have any other way to solve this problem. So you have to assume that the candles are burning at uniform rate. Each of the candle are burning at the uniform rate. It should have been mentioned in the question, but again, because there is no option like data insufficient or something, so we have to assume that both of them or each of them are burning with their uniform rate, right? So what are the rate of burning? So let's figure this out. So rate of burning for the first candle, the slower candle, 10 centimeter in 10 hours. So that is 1 centimeter per hour. And the faster one is 10 centimeter in 5 hours. So that is 2 centimeter per hour. Notice that because I took this as 10 centimeter, these two values comes out to be integers. And because of that, my calculation will automatically take less amount of effort. Now, what are we looking for? At what time? By the way, looking at the options, I understand that this should have been after what time. So I'll make that correction before, in the thumbnail of the video, you'll find this as after what time. So after what time will the slower burning candle be exactly twice as long as the faster burning one? So let us assume the time to be something, right? So let us assume that after T hours, this scenario happens. So after T hours, how much has the slower burning candle burned out? So that will be T into 1 or T centimeters. So this is how much the slower burning candle burned out. This is the burned out part. Let me write it here. Burned out the slower candle T centimeter, and the faster candle has burned out 2 into T. This is the rate into T hours. So that gives us 2T centimeter, right? So we are not looking for how much they are burned out. The relationship that is given is exactly twice as long as the faster one. That is the remaining length, right? So the remaining lengths are 10 minus T and 10 minus 2t, right? So these are the remaining lengths because each were 10 centimeter to begin with. And this length, this is a slower one, by the way, 10 minus this t. So the slower one will be twice as long as the faster one. So this is all we are looking for. So this equation becomes easy because already I've taken integers out here. So just solve this out. So you have a minus 4t comes with 3t. So you have a 3t is equal to 10, or t should be equal to 3.33 something. That is option B, 3.33 hours, 10 by 3 that is. Pretty straightforward question. There is a way you can avoid this variable t as well. But in this case, I wouldn't say that that will save a huge amount of time. You can take this variable, just one variable I'm taking to resolve this. Yeah, if you do take another variable for the length of the candle, then again, I mean, you're taking unnecessary variables. That is not required. As long as the relationship that has been provided in the question is maintained, that should not impact the solution. So what I mean is the relationship that has been provided in terms of the length of the candles are that they are equal in length. So as long as you're maintaining that part, it doesn't matter whether you take the length to be X or you take the length to be 1 centimeter or you take the length to be 10 centimeter or any other value for that matter. So it won't impact the solution any which way. So that's the entire solution for this question and everything that I wanted to add to it. Hopefully everything was understood, and thank you for joining.
Hopefully you liked the solutions we provided for these questions. And if you did like it, do not forget to like the video and share, subscribe, and comment. Do subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon. In that case, you'll get notification as soon as we upload a new video. And if you want to check a bouquet of courses that we provide, so we have a huge variant of courses from customizability to full preparation. You can check our website, www.mathoratory.com. I'll leave the link in the description below. And have an enjoyable preparation ahead. Welcome to the Math Oratory family and have a good exam ahead.